2, they didn't get along with their managers, and 3, they never felt like their voices are heard. So it doesn't matter what you do or where you are, listening is really important. And there are lots of people all over the world who are lonely and need someone to talk to. And that's what we're trying to do. And I think we've achieved it today. And it's really exciting. But without any further ado, I want to introduce you, because I'm really excited about this, Josh Drean. All right, think about this. I think I've done a lot in my life, but this guy, Josh, all right, Web 3.0 advisor at Harvard's Innovation Lab, core contributor of So Works, the Workplace Metaverse, co-founder of Drean Media. All is, and look at him, he's like 24 years old and he's done all this. Josh has also been featured, check this out, Harvard Business Review, Forbes, Bostino, and he's made appearances on the Today Show, NBC, Fox Business, and his YouTube channel. Check this out. I think I have a lot of LinkedIn followers with close to 20,000. He has million plus people who have viewed his information and his YouTube. And he's also was named, right about this, Josh, one of the 100 HR influencers in 2021. Oh, and why he does all that? He spends almost all of his time traveling internationally, speaking to hundreds of HR leaders and thousands of employees each year to design, and this is something that's dear to my heart, a better workforce experience. We have no time for this interview, Josh, because there's so much on your bio. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Ben. What a hype man you are. I appreciate the love.
I read it like 3 times. You know, you do your prep and you look at it, and I did a little checking in on you. It still just really impresses me, and I love it, and your passion. And if you haven't checked out his YouTube stuff, and this is not a shameless plug, it is really amazing. I want to jump right in really quickly. Let's discuss the listening as the feedback loop in your organization. Why is this so important, and how do you achieve it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love that I'm just like this giant screen next to you. I feel like I could come over and like,
I'm this big, Josh, and you're, yes, exactly. You're like the puppet master for me today. I love it.
Oh, well, I appreciate this conversation, and thank you so much for inviting me to it. It's a fascinating discussion, right? The listening industry is worth $878 million. You don't really
say that one more time. How big is it? How big is it?
$878 million is poured into the corporate world around listening software, which is a fascinating study because any of you who are used to the corporate world, you know that typically they will administer a once a year survey to ask how employees are doing. And that is the extent of the listening that they do. They might do a 360 review, which really puts you in the hot seat once a year. And a lot of these conversations happen around a performance review. But a lot of organizations aren't implementing the practice of actual listening, sitting down with the people, their stakeholders, their employees who run the organization to find out what is their experience at the organization. So I was actually building a startup out of the Harvard Innovation Labs, pioneering sentiment analysis in real time. That is a fancy way of saying, how do we get more honest feedback from employees? Because I don't know about you, but I hate taking surveys. It feels like a huge favor that I'm doing for the company that I am taking the survey for, especially if I know that there will be no action taken on the data that I'm providing, especially if there's a power dynamic at the organization where you're the boss and you're asking me questions, and depending on how I answer them depends on my status at the organization or my status among my peers. So there's a lot of layers to collecting good feedback. I come from the generation where feedback happens on a daily and hourly experience, where not only am I like posting on social media, but I'm receiving feedback instantly about how well that post does. And so I think that, especially when you see a generational gap, younger individuals joining the workforce, confused why no one is giving them feedback on how well they're working or not, except maybe once a year, it's a problem. So to answer your question, I work at an organization right now where we are fully authentic and transparent in everything that we do. asking for feedback on a daily basis. And that is how we kind of close that feedback loop.
Josh, why do you think like a lot of organizations, to me, it's common sense, right? You want to just not only talk to your direct reports, you want to talk throughout the organization and you want to listen, you want to hear. Why isn't it just standard operating procedure? And then after you answer that, I'd say add another element to it. How different is it to listen and communicate to millennials than it is to the new population coming in and taking over the workforce, the Zs?
The Z's, the Gen Z, they they are changing the game for sure. But to answer your question, if you are not listening to your employees, you're not going to last very long. I'm saying that because I have spent a lot of time consulting with HR companies who are very much people centric, are very much interested in tuning in to the individual that is working at their organization. And right now, the industry is encapsulating it in the term employee experience. If we want to retain and thrill and engage our top talent, we need to be listening to their experience, hearing how they're experiencing this work environment that we have established for them, and implementing that feedback. That right now is all the rave in the HR world, employee experience design. And how we got there was moving from a contractual way of work where you agree to work for me 9 to 5
Right.
and
I pay you this,
you
right?
do this much work. That model doesn't work anymore. We're moving from a contractual model to a partnership. And in order to do so, we need to be a good partner. Employers need to be a good partner with employees. And the best way that they can do that is by listening, truly listening by the principles that we've been learning here on how to listen. And we just had a perfect example of how you listen and continue to
Right.
listen and then implement that feedback. That is how you do
Well,
it.
So Josh, give me a couple how can someone start by implementing? Like if I called you up or we met each other at an event and I said, hey Josh, give me a couple tips. How can you start implementing in an organization?
One-on-ones. Everyone in this room, anyone who's tuned in, if you are not holding regular one-on-ones that are not for the purpose of productivity or understanding where they are in their workflow or removing bottlenecks, it is just to listen. If you're not holding one-on-ones on a weekly, on a quarterly basis with your people, from a frontline manager to their direct reports, that is the starting point. And I would also suggest breaking down some of the power dynamics that exist. A lot of employees are not being honest with you because they might fear for their job. They might fear that they would offend someone. They don't want to bring up drama that doesn't matter. All of that is a part of the employee experience. All of it needs to be on the table. So you need to create authentic, real experiences at work and moments where employees can be honest.
You know what I find? I always find when you skip level and you have a meeting with like one or two layers below or throughout or different parts of the organization, a lot more honesty and a lot more conversation happens than just with your direct. Because, like you said, maybe you're a little scared if I'm talking to my direct and being too radical with my candor. But when you're a couple layers away and you're talking to someone higher into the organization or the organization, you feel the ability to be freer. And it just makes the organization better.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I think behind that comment is a power dynamic. Forrester just produced some amazing research about how employee power is shifting from the employer to the employee. This is something that has been happening for decades. And I think at the height of the pandemic, especially around the Great Resignation, we saw this large power shift to where employers are no longer the holder of all power. They're the ones who say, I'm the boss, you're the employee, I set the terms of your employment, you have to follow that. And if you don't, we'll find someone else who's next in line who can do that. Where now employees have options. And I know that we're looking at the economy right now with a big question mark of what's going to happen, but what's not going to change, whether an organization is battening down the hatches or continuing to scale, they need to adjust their power dynamics for employees, because employees have power now. They have options, and that gives them the option to stay with the organization because they like the work that they're doing, or move on. And if they are withholding information from that organization, whether intentionally or not, that is power. And that is how employees are kind of standing up, kind of saying, hey,
Yep.
look, you need to design better experiences or we're going to hop to the next organization.
I truly think, and a lot of people probably disagree with me, is with a recession or whatever we want to call what's happening in the economy. Oh, it's going to bring the power back to the employer, right? And they don't have to do what they were doing when the Great Resignation was happening. I'm going to argue the whole other side. Now, more than ever, you have to listen to your employees, because your employees are the ones talking to your customer. They're talking to your vendors. They're talking to your partners. They're hearing from your customers, your partners, and your vendors. If you don't listen now, it could be disastrous. Where before it was just lots of people leaving, lots of people coming in. More important than ever now to listen.
I think you nailed it, Ben. I think that is absolutely correct. And the thing that just blows my mind is when you watch companies obsess about customer experience, and understandably so. Like, in today's world, you need to nail the customer experience because customers have so many options. They could buy any product that they want. There's tons of competition. If you get on Amazon and you have terrible reviews, you will never rank. And so customer experience is number one without a doubt. However, when it comes to employee experience, for some reason, we still have this antiquated view of you're lucky to work for us. You're lucky to be here, because if you weren't here, you wouldn't be able to pay for your family. And they're like, well, actually, I chose to be here because I have a lot of options. So you need to design an experience for me just like you would for a customer, or else I'm going to leave. And so I think employee experience is behind, but it's coming and it's going to be huge. And that's going to be the big differentiator for if companies retain their employees or not.
You and I are so on the same page. So let's jump in. What are a couple organizations or some examples of organizations that are doing engagement well?
I can give you hundreds of examples that are of companies who are not doing it well. And I won't call out any names specifically, but putting into that bucket, companies who are not doing it well, hold on to this antiquated idea of companies have all the power and employees do not. They're running surveys, maybe they're paying lip service to listening to employees, but they're not actually doing that. Or even worse, they are not even asking employees how they're feeling. I heard a wise word from one of my mentors, James McQuivey, who says people are not experiencing survey fatigue at work. They are experiencing inaction fatigue, because we're collecting feedback, but we're not doing anything with that feedback. So to answer your question, the organizations that are doing it well are not only collecting feedback on a weekly and quarterly basis, they are implementing strategies. They are communicating effectively to those employees about what they're doing. And even if you don't have a solution, I know that some problems are complicated in the workforce, but even just saying, we hear you, we understand the pain, here's what we're going to do, here's what we're going to be watching, and promise we're going to follow up with you and hear you after we've tried a few things to see how it went. And if it didn't go great, we're going to pivot.
I think that's all your employees, your constituents want. Just acknowledge that you heard me. No one expects you to fix it overnight. I know we have so much to talk about. I can just talk about this topic all day, but we're running out of time. So I want to jump into the next thing. How about this? Are you a good listener?
That is a very interesting question. So I am married to a marriage and family therapist who is a trained listener. She does sessions all day long where her job is mainly to listen to people's pains, to not even really provide a solution, but to just point out patterns that they're experiencing. And I think we saw a perfect example of this earlier, where you ask a question. Can be as simple as, how are you feeling? No, really, how are you feeling? And just listening. And instead of trying to come up with solutions, ask the question, what else? And what else? Anything else out there? And just by allowing them to cathartically get it all out, that is powerful. I'm still learning how to do that. I would say I'm not a great listener. I'm just all over the place. It's really hard for me to stay engaged, but my wife has trained me, so I'm getting there.
I love that. All right, I have time for a couple more questions for you. Workplace metaverse, right? I know you're a big fan of the metaverse. You talk about it. What impact do you think the metaverse will have and is having on employees and remote employees?
I'm going to make a bold statement here. The metaverse is coming, and a lot of the problems that we're experiencing in the workplace, where employers are not doing a good job listening to their employees are going to discover a Web3 technology where they don't need the overhead. They don't need a boss managing them. They don't need a centralized corporation to tell them how to work, where to work, when to work. They will have options that is not jumping to another job or another opportunity for employment. They will be jumping into a DAO, a crypto network based on a smart contract where they get to do more work that they enjoy without having to deal with a lot of the corporate baggage that comes along with work. And that includes listening. I feel like they will be able to voice their opinions as a stakeholder, not as an employee, as a frontline puppet. They will be able to actually contribute in ways that they see fit.
All right. Does the metaverse mean is the future metaverse goggles or not goggles?
Not goggles.
All right. I love you once more. Can I ask him just three more questions?
3 more.
It's his show. He's allowed to come on anytime you want. All right. Really quickly, first thing off the top of your head, book you most often give as a gift.
The Lean Startup.
Favorite comic?
Calvin and Hobbes, all the way.
Clever.
Favorite word?
Decentralized.
All right. Now, this is my favorite question to ask, and you can say anything. Least favorite word?
Control.
Love it. Josh, I could really talk to you all day. This was great. Adi, what do you think of this guy?
Josh is great. This is just the first of many, many conversations that Josh, Drean, and Hapi will have. So thank you for joining us. And
appreciate it.
We're going to do another series with you. So just stay tuned for that.
Yep. But next time, Josh, I will be on the big screen. You will be on the small screen and stage.
Can't wait. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Josh. And to all our viewers out there and in the studio, we just want to thank you for joining us. But first, before we wrap, I want everyone to take out their phones, whether you're at home or whether you're in the studio, go to the iOS App Store and download the Hapi app. That's the HAPI app. It's the one with the orange box, the Talker app, and all of